Welcome to the Hamumu Halloween Home Horror Hoedown, the podcast where we watch scary movies so you don't have to.
From award-winning to completely unknown, we take them all way too seriously.
I'm your host, Mike Hummel.
And I'm your host, Solange Hummel.
Now, warning, we use a ghoulish number of spoilers, so watch the movies first.
Second warning, we don't know anything about anything, so don't take us seriously as we take these movies seriously. So, I have an idea for today's podcast.
I'm going to listen to your idea.
And
then reject it out of hand.
That was unexpected.
Yeah, I probably should have done that after, because that was the listening part didn't happen yet.
No, it didn't.
Let's go.
Okay. Since we're reviewing No One Will Save You from 2023, I think we should do our podcast with no dialogue.
Well, there can be some dialogue, like in the distance, like, that movie sounds interesting.
And then we can have exclamations like, gasp. What the?
Ooh. Oh no. Yikes.
Yikes. Zoinks.
Zoinks.
Okay, clearly that won't work for a podcast. Do you think having no dialogue works for a movie? That's my first question.
Yeah, I do. I think it's not an everyday choice. It's just a little tasty treat every once in a while, but you can do it. It can be a thing. Sometimes it might get a little contrived, but...
Speaking of sound effects in the distance.
Ruthie loves when we start our podcast because that means it's time to start rolling her plastic balls around their little tray.
Every time. It was contrived in places, and I will give you that it is an interesting idea, that it was something kind of new, unusual, artistic, perhaps.
Artistic.
All of that being conceded, I discovered that I'm not a fan.
I see. From the get-go, I was thinking of the Buffy episode, Hush. And I realize now that kind of the difference there is that story came with a conceit, which was that the demons had come to town and sucked everyone's voices away, that made it make sense that this was the case. In this movie, it was just a matter of no one's going to happen to talk. Like, we have a lot of scenes where someone walks up and has a meaningful look at someone else and they go, oh, well, they don't do that. They don't respond and they walk away disgusted or whatever. And it all makes sense. It was understandable. Mm-hmm. But it's not realistic.
No, it's not. And I mean, a lot of it made sense that she was being quiet because she was being hunted, right? Like those parts all made sense. But there were definitely moments where you're like, really? You're not going to say a word right now? You got nothing to tell anybody about? You just killed an alien back at your house and you're not going to say anything about that?
There came a point where she went to the cops to be like, there's a dead alien in my house. But then she got spat on and the cops kind of glared at her. And so she was like, okay. And she just left, except without the saying okay part.
So the spat on part is interesting. So this is the movie of an alien invasion that really isn't explained, because there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
But an alien invasion happens, and we are watching one woman experience it. And they come into her house, and she becomes, like, if the aliens were just there to be like, what is this planet? Let us discover the wonders of the nature on this new planet.
Yeah.
They would have felt like she and she alone was the most dangerous thing on the entire sphere that they had landed on.
Yeah, she did not make a good first impression.
I mean, beyond that, though, like, not only did she not make a good first impression, but then she killed every alien she came across. Like, they would, according to what evidence they have in front of them at the end of this movie, she is immortal And also the deadliest thing they've ever experienced.
Yeah. Although I will say that by the end of the movie, they have like sucked her brain and they know what she's all about. So they know that's not true.
Okay, that is true.
But that is kind of the moment of peace.
Yes, significantly through the movie, she is immortal and the deadliest thing they've ever experienced. Like, she somehow, and kind of accidentally, manages to kill many of these aliens.
Well, and what's interesting is there are a couple points where the aliens try to communicate with her via hand gestures. And I'm not sure, I never really got an idea of what they were trying to say, but like there was a little alien who was chasing her through the house. And at one point, you know, she's gotten away and she's in the hallway and he comes into the hallway and he does a hand thing.
He vogues at her.
He vogued definitely at her. And there was peace for a moment as he was voguing and she was just looking at him going like, I don't know what that means. And then she attacked him in some way. Or maybe he attacked her. I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I don't really remember either, other than, well, that blue light came and went, and this movie made me think of a book I read many years ago called The Sparrow, which was very much about the clash that happens when two cultures that cannot possibly understand each other. Like, not just having a language barrier, but also, like, everything else is foreign and not understandable. And that what happens then when your fear and your confusion are what drive, you know, are the filter that you're reading everything through.
Yeah.
And this was, I think there was an element of that. Like, I think these aliens were very dangerous, but I also think they didn't know what they were getting into, and no one knew anything about them. Like, there was just, no one knew what was going on, and everyone was just trying to keep themselves alive.
Oh, that reminds me, at the end of the movie, there was a bunch of dialogue, but it was all in alien, and it was not subtitled, so we don't know what they were saying.
Right. So, okay, and then when it got to that part, then I was like, wait, what did it make me think of then? I really thought it was all misunderstanding until it got to the end, and then it felt sort of like Under the Dome. You know what I mean? Like, where it's, the aliens did know what they were doing, and they just came and were just screwing with life on Earth. That
features into my issue that at the end of the movie, I didn't understand what was going on. And that could be a me thing. I mean, I guess that is a me thing. Whatever is happening, they intended something when they wrote this. So there was something, and I don't know what it was. And for like the first half of this movie, I had a whole idea of what was happening that was cooler than the movie.
What was the idea?
Like, that's what should be happening. Because these aliens came in and they were not aggressive. They were like dangerous because they had telekinetic powers, but they were just, you know, like it seemed like maybe they were trying to explore and they didn't know, you know, what they were getting into. Like you said, this culture clash that is a mistake from both sides, and it is what it is. Because there are a lot of scenes like where the alien kind of traps her behind the refrigerator door and doesn't attack her. He kind of like peeks up over the refrigerator door, and then she freaks out and attacks him. And there's a lot like that where it seems like she's the aggressor and they are scary and doing things that we wouldn't be okay with, but that aren't attacks. So it's weird. So then later we encounter the human beings who have been taken over by aliens. They have wiggly throats. Like you can see that there's some kind of bug in their throat. And they're, you know, alien. They run around attacking people like, you know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And that got me into this whole thing. And even later, we see aliens with wiggly throats, but it's kind of just how they talk. I think it's just like they vibrate their throats when they talk. I don't know. It's weird.
I have a theory about that, but finish what you're saying and then we'll come back to my theory.
Well, until this was disproven, I thought, oh, I get it. These aliens were infected with these bug things.
Oh, that's my theory.
So the ones coming after her were they were evil, but they weren't the evil ones. The bugs were.
Right. The thing in the throat was the true invasion, and the gray aliens were just the previous species they had invaded.
So they came in on the gray alien spaceships, and now they're infecting us. And the telekinetic powers, that's the gray aliens. The bugs don't really have any powers. They just take over people. Because when the people were infected, they didn't have any powers. And I was like, okay, this is all fitting with what I think. But then later, it's very clear that, well, I mean, I guess this could still be the bugs, but the gray alien puked up a bug to infect her and made her get infected.
A ball of worms.
Yes,
one of my notes is the alien regurgitates a ball of worms into her mouth.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, that's cool. But I don't know. The latter half of the movie, it seemed pretty clear that the aliens were doing what they wanted to do and they weren't being controlled.
That it was more like the bug thing in their throats was like another piece of them. Was like a piece of them that they could project into other species. Yeah,
it's a propagation mechanism.
Sure.
So that was disappointing because the way the aliens were acting, I thought maybe the little one that was in her house that tried to make friends with her was, not infected. And he was trying to tell her, hey, let's work together. We got to solve this. But no, apparently I don't know why he was trying to talk to her.
No, I don't know either. The other thing, another note that I had was that the reason the aliens were there was because they wanted the human emotion. That was another storyline that it kind of reminded me of that the aliens were there to feed on the fear, the drama. They wanted her story, right? They wanted to get into her brain and learn what it was about her. And that maybe there was something, she had this very traumatic past that had happened. And so that they really desired her memories because they were juicier or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know that there was any way for them to know that.
That could be a thing.
And then there was the happy ending of the aliens invading all the people, and now she's happy because the aliens are nice to her, where the people were mean to her. Did that really happen, or was that in her brain?
I think that really happened. The aliens have taken over everybody except for her, and they've captured her memories. So that was a moment of reconciliation. They captured her memories, and they went, oh, we get humans now. And so they put her back on Earth to party with all the bug people, and then that's good.
But first they gave her a moment of reconciliation with the friend that she murdered when they were 13 years old.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
It was an accident. Murder, but she killed her with a rock.
Oh, right. It wasn't an accident.
It wasn't
at all.
So much.
Sorry.
It was a moment of anger that went too far. But, her friend pushed her down and she picked up a rock and bashed her friend in the head, which feels like a lot of an escalation of the moment.
Yes, that escalated quickly. And it was her friend's mom that spat in her face, just so you know.
Yes. So, but so they gave her this moment where she gets to reconcile with her friend and apologize. But really, it then became more about, she apologized to the friend, but it almost seemed like it was more important to her that she got to forgive herself, because then she saw herself writing in the journal as right after it had happened, and this is a thing that she's been doing for 10 years. And I'm like, really? The self-forgiveness part was more important than the apologizing to the people you've hurt part?
I think so. And I think the aliens were kind of working with that. They were doing the therapy on her to get her through this guilt thing. And that's why she became a happy dancer at the end, is they resolved her issues and now she's cool, which is not the best.
I know, it was weird. The emotions of it were weird and felt off to me.
Here's the thing though.
They felt alien to me.
Exactly. At the end, all the other humans have been taken over by bugs, so they're not humans. But is she human, or is she a dancer?
Stop.
Just saying. They leave you with questions.
I did, during that scene, I did stare intently at her throat, trying to see if there was a wiggly bug in it.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell.
I don't know. That's the thing, is I truly don't understand what was happening there. And there was like a whole conversation between the aliens, which I'm sure explained everything, but I don't speak their language.
Well, so I think there's a small possibility that it didn't really happen at all at the end, and that she said she was sorry to her dead friend. She forgave herself for making this mistake and, realized I have worked hard to become a better person, whatever. And then she just, like, in her brain created, or the aliens created for her, this alternate world in her brain that she's living in, where the aliens are there and they're her friends, and she gets to go visit them, and they're all just happy together, and all the mean people are gone, and then everything's fine.
Yeah, maybe that's their way of trying to take over the earth by, getting the people to think that they're friendly.
Ooh, kind of Matrix-y.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in a pod now.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's going on there, but I also don't know what happened earlier when, she got the worm ball in her throat, which took her over. And that part made sense, where she was like living in a fantasy world inside her head while her body was doing things because it was alien. Somehow she was able to disgorge the worm ball by doing things in her dream world. Okay,
doing things in her dream world, but in the real world, is that what you were going to talk about? How she got the worm ball out of her throat?
Well, no, I was going to talk about what happens after that. How did she get it out of her throat?
She shoved her whole hand down her own throat.
That's true. Yeah.
I can't even fit my whole hand in my mouth. Yeah. And she had like her arm down her throat. I'm like, no. No.
She did. I forgot.
Okay. So then she did that.
She got it out. She threw it on the ground. And then there's a whole sequence where the worm ball, I think it was the worm ball involved, was used along with the beam from the spaceship to make a copy of her. Mm-hmm. And so now there was a copy of her, and she had to fight the copy of her and kill it. And
with a box cutter.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So I took notes on this one. I was like, New Bryn stabs Old Bryn in a way that's like a gut stab, like you're done kind of stabs. But before she's done, Old Bryn cuts New Bryn's neck with a box cutter. So New Bryn is bleeding out, and Old Bryn holds New Bryn as she bleeds out.
More of that self-forgiveness. Mm-hmm.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
But like that whole duplicate thing then introduces a big uncertainty to all the things we've already seen. We've seen all these people with bugs in their throats, and I thought they were infected people. Now I'm wondering, are they copies of people and those people are somewhere? But I don't know.
We didn't see any other people. And did the new people kill the old people? We didn't see bodies of people even.
Maybe that's it. They killed them and dragged them out to the woods and they were gone. Because it doesn't make sense for these two very different things to be happening. So I think we kind of have to assume that all the bug people we've seen are copies. So here's what happens. They put the worm ball in you, and you go to your mind palace for a little while where it gets your information, and then you puke it out. She didn't do anything special. They always puke it out. Then it makes a copy of you. The copy murders you and uses its nice human intelligence to hide the body somewhere. And now the copy of you has a bug in its throat and is running around doing things.
Maybe.
Interpretive dance, mainly.
But then what the heck is going on then where we're seeing like she's reconciling with her friend and she's forgiving herself and she's going to the Hoedown?
Because she was the special one who killed her copy, and they were like, this one's something special. We're going to take her up here and we're going to explore her brain and find out what's going on.
And that was all the alien dialogue up in this spaceship, was them talking about how she's special. And
yeah, they were like, hey, she's special. Hey, we should explore her brain. Hey, okay. They always start everything with, hey. You know how aliens are?
You know.
Yeah.
They're like that. Okay. Here's the thing. I do not know how aliens are, because in this one movie, these same gray aliens came in like 6 different shapes.
I know. That was another thing I was thinking, you know, okay, so my whole theory that they were bug infested and they were normal grays. I thought they were like mutating from having the bug in them. Like it made their bodies stretch out, because that was basically it, was the proportions would go wrong.
Well, so it started and they were like what you think of as a gray alien, you know, human height with the bulby head and long gangly limbs and
similar to human proportion.
Tiptoey sucker feet.
You don't normally think of that, but that is the case. Yeah.
So we see several of those, but then we see the little one, which is all like bendy and crooked and
I mean,
short
he was real short, except that like his arms were normal length, so they were way too long for his body.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, that's weird that their children look like that. But okay, I just kind of assumed that this was a child of some kind. And then we got the spider on the roof one, which wasn't really on the roof so much as its legs were so long that it was over the house.
Yeah, it was. I think it probably had a normal sized body and then legs out to here. Let me tell you, some gams that alien had.
Yes, it was. And I get why they were different for the story, because they did different things, but I don't understand why these aliens came in so many different shapes, because then you go up into the ship and they're all gray alien shaped. Regular.
So, that was my original thing, was like, okay, they're being mutated like that. And then I was hoping to see the humans, you know, have arms that are too long or something, just a little bit too long, like they're starting to do that. But it wasn't that. Maybe they're just, you know, they come in different varieties so that they can excel in different ways. One's real good at scrambling around a house. One's real good at scrambling over a house.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't flow for me idea-wise. And honestly, I'm not sure if dialogue would have changed that.
Well, maybe if they just explained it.
I don't think there was an explanation is the thing. Like, I don't think that was something dialogue would have explained. It would have just been like, see, here, now these ones are different.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't just do that. There has to be a reason.
And that's what it felt like, is that there were too many different ideas here. And maybe that's only because there was no dialogue, so we couldn't learn any of the ideas. Yeah. But it just felt like I couldn't get a grasp on what was happening because it had so many parts.
Yeah. As I'm looking at my notes, I'm realizing, so the thing between Bryn and Maud happened when they were 12.
Yeah.
And we learn early on that it happened 10 years ago. So Bryn is only 22 years old.
That makes sense.
She was more capable at 22 than many of the people I know who are 30 years old.
Well, she demonstrated that capability right off the bat when she's running an Etsy shop. And she's...
Is that how you demonstrate capability?
I think you got to know what you're doing to run an Etsy shop.
Yeah.
Oh, and she has really good handwriting.
Oh, yeah. I think possibly she was holding it together because her mom was around, but then her mom died, and so...
Yeah, she was all alone in this house, and that was never explained, but she did seem like very orphaned.
Well, it was sort of explained. At the very, very first scene, she was being sad at a gravestone, and it was for her mother.
Sure.
But, I mean, that was the extent of it. I feel like it's probably obvious from everything that I've said so far that I was not overly impressed with this movie. I think it was, like you said at the beginning, I think it was a very interesting, artistic, unique choice to make this movie with no dialogue. And that part of it, I thought, was done very well. It could have been terrible, right? Like, it could have been so clunky and so awkward. And it wasn't. There were moments that were. But overall, it worked. Mm-hmm. But I don't understand the story. And like I said, I don't think that was because there was no dialogue. I think I just didn't understand what was happening in the story. You know, the first thing I would want to add is I would want to see this movie but with the subtitles for the alien part.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that might have helped some.
I think it would have helped with the ending a lot.
But beyond that, I don't know. I don't know. It was entertaining. It was vaguely entertaining to watch. I was interested in what was going on the whole time. At the end, it got very chaotic, and I was like, I can't put all of these pieces together. And I realized I didn't care enough to really want to try to put all the pieces together. So that probably isn't a great sign. But it was interesting. So I do think I would recommend that people watch it just for the uniqueness of it. I keep wanting to say gameplay, but like, you know, it's different than other movies. And I think that's an interesting experience. But I would say don't expect a ton from it. And, you know, just be prepared to just have the experience and not necessarily understand what the experience is.
Yeah.
So because of that, I guess I will give this movie. Okay, I'm gonna round up like I did for the last one. I don't think it quite deserves a 3, but it deserves more than a 2.5. So it's between. So I'm gonna round it up to a generous 3 upside down mail trucks out of 5.
Okay.
And most of that 3 is because it's interesting that they managed to make an entire movie with no real dialogue in it that mostly worked.
Sure. I'm right with all of those comments. To me, it felt... I want to be a little more positive in that it felt throughout maybe the first 3/4 of this movie that it was interesting. It was very, you know, kind of action-packed as she ran from one problem to another, and the aliens were always chasing her, and it was interesting and inventive, you know, sneaking and running and fighting the aliens. And that was well done. It's fine. So it seemed enjoyable, and it feels like it fell apart at the end where I'm worried that it's just I'm not smart enough to understand the specifics. But it just didn't make any sense. Too convoluted. Like, this could have been simple enough, you know, with the aliens. Here's the thing. It's not that it could have been simpler. It's that if they had done their jobs right, it would have been understandable even though there was no dialogue. And I think the lack of dialogue is why it's not understandable. There were things that needed explaining, and they weren't.
They tried to do too much. They tried to have the unique format and also tell a story that was too complicated for that format.
Yeah, for that format if you don't do it right, if you're not good enough. That's what I'll say. Okay. Okay. But so I think I'll also give it 3 upside down mail trucks out of 5, but mine's I'm edging it down a little from 3.5 instead of up. Okay. Yeah.
That's fair. Well, there you have it. Now you know what we think about No One Will Save You. And if you come back next week, you'll find out what we think about something else.
It's always good to learn what we think.
We're very smart.
I can't imagine. Well, clearly not. We proved it with this movie.
We've proved it with a number of movies.
We're the dumb ones.
But you know what? We're fun.
Yeah.
Okay, see you next week. Bye.
Come have fun with us.
Okay, it's No One Will Save You, right? What the hell happened? It's the stupid alien movie. Okay.
Solely.
You heard me. I said stupid.